So I had this setup in my basement. I drove down and got the cat in a cardboard box. Just before lunch, I put it into a jar filled with formaldehyde. But you'll be cheated. It's such a sadness that you think you've seen a film on your fucking telephone. Get real.
Alright, this is the first video on the new setup. This will make for quicker editing, rendering, just makes the whole overall process a lot less nerve-wracking. No more 10 plus crashes trying to edit like a 8-minute video. I've been playing around with the new setup, been trying some stuff out, and getting practice on Resolve. That's what the last 2 videos are for. I love it. Shotcut was a great start, but I'm already in love with the new one, and now I'm not so nervous making longer running videos now. There's no good intro to this. I mean, okay, so I've heard of David Lynch, right? I've heard a lot of things, seen a crap ton of memes, but I never actually sat down to watch one of his movies until like a couple nights ago. And even after seeing this twice, I know that I'm not confident enough to even begin to try and decipher everything in this, let alone review it. All I can say for now is how it made me feel and some things I took notice of on my second watch, hence why there's no review tag. I'm positive that I'll be reviewing this again sometime in the future. We're just gonna let this do for a while until I get the itch for another round. But for now, maybe we can call this like a reaction slash, I don't know, maybe a recovery video. Like, this feels like one of those shape exercises in therapy where they make you look at a picture and then you have to say how it made you feel, which, I mean, that's pretty unique. There's a very light narrative, but this feels more like a video art gallery. Thinking about it now, I think it might have been a mistake to start off with the Eraserhead, because I saw his film Blue Velvet almost right after I finished this, and compared to Eraserhead, it's a lot easier to connect with, but at the same time, starting off with such a barrage of visual bazaar was a good test to see whether I could really get into more of his other stuff, and I really liked it. It's kind of been this mini obsession for me the past couple days. I was getting stressed out trying to find a good video topic, and recently I've been on a crusade of movie binging. Eraserhead had been on my watch list for God knows how long. I heard it was weird and was just like, alright, screw it, I'm diving in. Great decision though, because I enjoyed it. I thought it was it was very well, interestingly presented. I need to start watching the more crazier stuff out there. I'm looking at you, Holy Mountain. But okay, this fucking movie, God. I guess spoilers from here on. I don't really know if there's a way to discuss this movie in a general sense. Visual spoilers, I mean, because some of the wacky stuff in here is honestly worth watching from within the movie's context. If someone came up to me and asked me to describe Eraserhead on the spot, plot-wise, I guess I would say this is about a guy who just became a dad and is trying to navigate through it, but it's just really weird about it. In summary, that's it. That's the movie. And this collage of scenes lends itself to a lot of creative expression. That is hands down what I love most about this. It is so refreshing about how uncompromising this felt for me as an audience. Unless it's independently made, Eraserhead I think would have a near 0% chance of getting picked up by a studio today. Honestly, I don't even think A24 would touch it, and they're like the most progressive studio right now in mainstream cinema when it comes to non-conventional filmmaking or stories. But, okay, the summary, Eraserhead focuses mostly on Henry Spencer, played by Jack Nance, a factory worker at a printing facility who's on vacation and finds out that his girlfriend, which, according to the end credits, is named Mary X. I don't remember an X in the name, but okay. And right, so they have a kid, and they're born with several, or maybe one, I don't know, defects at birth, which it barely resembles a human, if it can even be called that. His girlfriend Mary, and really her whole family, has a ton of mental issues, which Henry's reaction to them are honestly hilarious. It's just so bizarre that it borders on a dark comedy sometimes. The situation itself is really messed up, but Henry keeps that same expression on his face, which is like a mix of fear and panic at all times, and that hair, oh my god, it is legendary. I'm sure it's common knowledge by now, but I'll say it anyways. Props for Jack Nance to maintain that hairstyle for the entire time it took to finish the film. That was for 5 years. Five years. Holy shit, that's dedication, my guy. I love you.
I love you.
Along the way, the movie kind of delves into this existential narrative of Henry and Mary's parenting woes and kind of a mental reflection of how Harry's handling the situation. The movie, at least to me, starts pretty straightforward story-wise. It's not until, I want to say, after Mary's completely out of the picture that everything kind of spirals down into a more of a metaphorical experience. So what I want to do is kind of go with a play-by-play on just 3 sequences or 3 bullet points on my list that I felt that I had the most to work with for now. I'm not going to do a super deep dive, and I'm mostly going over my notes that I had written down after my second viewing. And if you have the time, check it out for yourself. Even if it's your first David Lynch film, this is arguably one of his most surreal flicks from what I've seen after looking a little more into his filmography. I mean, they're all a little odd in some sense. It varies, but that's just how he is. I don't know what the bylaws on being a fan of someone's work amounts to, but just from what I've seen so far, I'll just say that for now, I really like his style. And that has nothing to do with understanding it, because I love the process of rewatching and trying to study something, especially in movies. The weirder the better, as long as it makes me feel something. Being weird just for the sake of it has its own merits, and people have varying thresholds on that. If it excites some kind of an emotion out of me, I'm happy, and I'm appreciative of the time and effort and creativity that it took to achieve that. And sometimes, like in this case here, I clicked with this way more after seeing it a second time. Some art requires that, and that's okay. Alright, so on my notes here, the first thing I wanted to talk about was the background, specifically any outdoor shots. It looks completely unlivable, especially where Henry lives. It's a little better at Mary's house, but damn dude, it looks more like the literal wasteland from Fallout 3. Someone's had to have made that comparison before. I'm sorry if that's redundant, but look at this shit. I dig the theme of it though. For being a black and white picture too, I thought there was really good contrasting of the light and the shadows. And also, I have thalassophobia, so while there isn't any water here, just anywhere where there's a massive black or empty space like an abyss always gets me creeped out. And there's lots of that. It works perfectly in this movie. And all those shots where there's that really, really dark contrasting between the white spaces and the dark, oh my god, just very unsettling. Or anybody appearing from the dark, oh my god, that's like one of my worst fears. Like, I've had dreams of like stuff like that happening, and I was like, no, why? But it's good, it's so good, I love it. Sound design, the mixing, and basically anything audio related was great, man. Within the first 15 minutes especially, it made me take notice of that. There's a scene in the beginning when, after Henry gets home for the first time, where he sits down after taking his muddy sock off to let it dry in the radiator, that he kind of begins to zone out and gets lost in his thoughts. It started with a low hum or some vibrating noise, but as it escalates, it sounds more like a swarm of bees or bats or insects chattering something. It's great though. The whole movie, man, there's not too many inclusions of, I guess, traditional sounding music because it's mostly ambient. And I think that lended a lot to its benefit. It felt like that decision was to keep you focused on whatever was on screen, in particular with the really crazy sequences. And when there is music, it almost kind of clashes with the reality of their world. It's almost too pure in contrast with the insanity of their lives. I love the symbolism through audio of that scene, which I took to mean it's reflecting what's going on inside his head. He gets told by his neighbor that his girlfriend Mary called and invited him over to her house to have dinner with her parents, and he does not seem too excited by that news. He looks in his drawer to find a picture of Mary that was torn up, which, based on that, I'm gonna guess that they either just recently broken up or had some kind of a scuffle. On the back of the photo is her address, and when he decides to go, that's when shit really begins to kick off. And when he does, and he meets the family, we get introduced to Mary. Like, I'm sure everybody thought that, like, but how the hell did they ever hook up? What was their first meeting like? Is he just into that? Okay, maybe it was more like she wasn't that crazy until after she had the baby, maybe to symbolize the before and after of a relationship, especially with kids involved. But the only evidence I could see to counter that would be that when Mary's mom, Mrs. X, first meets Henry and asks him what he does for work, Mary just freaks the hell out and her mom has to calm her down, which apparently works by coddling and brushing her hair a bit. And Henry apologizes, but he says it in a way like, oh yeah, I forgot she gets triggered like that. I don't know if it was from the question or his delayed response, or maybe it's a tick. There's gonna be a lot of maybes. Have your shot glasses ready. I'm gonna be saying maybe more times than Sheldon says bazinga.
Bazinga.
To each their own, I guess. Or maybe he was just really desperate, which, I mean, with that hair, I don't blame him. But then there's Bill. Oh my god, I fucking love Bill. He's such a card. He's a little odd, but very sweet guy. I mean, the man...
I've seen this neighborhood change from pastures to the hellhole it is now. I'd put every damn pipe in this neighborhood. Yeah, Bill.
So, props to him. He's super warm and welcome to Henry. I'd argue he might be the second most sane person in this cast. I'd have a beer with Bill, hell. But you're not gonna find me at his place for dinner, that's for sure. Well, not with those man-made chickens, ugh. So, yeah, when we see a little sequence of watching Mr. and Mrs. X for a while in the kitchen getting dinner ready, this is what I want to talk about. It's a small thing, so just bear with me. But I just think it's funny that both Mr. and Mrs. X are in the same space in the kitchen, right? But whenever it focuses on one area at a time, it's set only between two shots. One where Mrs. X is puppeteering mentally vacant grandmother, and the other while Bill is getting the chicken set. But while we're focusing on one or the other, you never hear sounds where the other person in the kitchen is working. And I'm gonna admit this, and maybe I'm just stupid, but honest to God, I thought they were in separate rooms the first time I watched it. It wasn't until this time where I was like, oh shit, that's the same stove in both shots. They're both in the kitchen, but between that detail about the sound and the fact that they're not in the same shot and the angle of them both just feels like separate spaces, intentionally or not, I think it's a nice little bit to emphasize the division in the family. Mr. and Mrs. X do not seem to share a very loving relationship, and the grandmother is barely alive and their daughter's a quack. Lots of dysfunction on several levels, and I thought that was really well communicated for just a 10-minute scene. This is already running longer than I'd intended, but I'm sorry, there's just so much here we can dive into. So let's flash forward to what's arguably the most intriguing element of this movie, and that's in Henry and Mary's child. I mean, is it fucked up to emphasize how horrifying their kid is? Because in real life, although it's never confirmed in stone what they used as the baby, it seems that the general understanding has been that it was some kind of deformed animal, goat, sheep, cow, whatever, and I've read that there was even a burial for it after finishing production. But whatever the hell that thing is, it is terrifying, but it is a fantastic effect either way. I don't know what I can compare it to. I mean, it looks very alien, but from my take, it was like I don't know what the fuck that... Oh, you know what it reminded me of? That's what it was. That fucking bookworm. You know what I'm talking about? You know that old, like, PC game? Like a while back, that worm, that's what that looks like. That's what it was. Yeah, I was just imagining. I think there could be two explanations as to why it's so disturbing of a portrayal as it is. For one, in a more literal story-based sense, I'm suspicious whether the condition of their baby is more due to their surroundings. I made a joke about how everything looks like the wasteland from Fallout, but especially with that nuclear blast picture on the wall beside Henry's bed, maybe there's some truth to that. They could be living in a post-nuclear Fallout, which also might explain why seemingly everyone outside of Henry seems a little off, to say the least. The other reason being that with how the baby's behavior is, very picky on the kind of foods it eats that seemingly neither Mary nor Henry seem to have a full understanding of, and its kind of cruel response in seeing Henry become dejected after becoming unwanted by the lady across the hall, the child doesn't seem to respond or have any characteristics of a traditional, human baby. It still might be very well in the movie's context, but with Henry being a new parent, I think it also reflects on how unprepared both he and Mary are about the situation, and Mary is the first to crack. She just cannot handle it and basically dips after the second night of being there at Henry's home. I've heard from some of my friends and family that have kids about just how daunting it feels when you bring a baby home, especially when it was their first. You don't know what to do, it's intimidating because you're now fully responsible for keeping this very vulnerable and dependent being alive that requires a lot of attention and nurturing. New parents have that learning curve and understanding what their child needs, and Eraserhead portrays that in a really intense way by contrasting how this new entry into the home might as well be trying to understand an alien's behavior. Alright, I know I'm skipping through a lot, but I wanted to talk about the ending, in particular with Henry's decision to cut open the baby's bandages, because that motivation kind of fascinated me. So if you've seen the movie, you know that Henry has an affair with the lady across the hall. He seemed to be really into her, and it's made aware that she doesn't want him after their one-night stand, likely because of the babbling nightmare fuel chilling on the desk. Can you blame her, really? And when that's made known, it seems to really pull on Henry's last nerve. Now, I don't know if his intention was to kill the kid. It can definitely seem to be taken that way, but I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second here. I don't think he wanted to kill it initially. It wasn't until after he saw that it was suffering that he decided to, end its misery. It wasn't made known that cutting open the bandages would necessarily harm the little guy. It could have partially been from curiosity, but the way that scene plays out, him cutting it open right after seeing his neighbor with someone else, realistically, it's more likely that he was trying to find some way to get rid of it. On principle alone, that's a horrible thing to do. That's unjustifiable in any way you look at it. Sacrificing something that completely depended on his care, and from my impression too, the kid seemed to have a lot more of a connection with Henry than it did with Mary. When Mary leaves, there isn't shown to be any scene where the baby cries as badly as it did while she was there. If anything, it gets more upset whenever Henry tries to leave his apartment. And I could see how that would symbolize maybe the entrapment that Henry feels, and why the movie shows more insight into his mental state and really what he dreams and those desires he has to be with someone that really loves him. That's what the radiator lady, I think, is meant to represent. Those last 8 minutes of the movie, man, are really brutal. That kid goes out with a bang, and it's fucking horrifying. But I'll be damned, it is visually impressive to watch. I love that sequence. Alright, now, I didn't cover everything I wrote down on my notes. While writing this and getting all the footage together that I wanted, there was an issue where I couldn't find any videos pertaining to the other scenes I wanted to mention. I'll have to get a DVD burner and get the footage myself, but I think for now this is a good place to stop. With this being the first main video on my new setup, I want to take it a little easy starting off and build up to it. I probably didn't go as in-depth as you were expecting, but that's kind of intentional, sort of. I want to revisit this and do another video in the future, but for now, I just want to talk more about a few handpicked moments and themes that I really felt I could sink my teeth into. And there's still, you know, the Eraserhead Dream Factory sequence, the lady across the hall, the man on the planet, the radiator lady, Mary's last night, all that I still want to dive into. But for now, I'd say let's save that for when I get a better handle on YouTube and how I want to present my stuff. Those more hallmark moments of the movie, I want to do it justice. Eraserhead was kind of a random pick, but I kind of wanted to do one for me, one for you, you know, because just talking about what's trending, while they get good views, just sometimes it isn't what I want to talk about. This is still a work in progress. It's frustrating because I really want to lock in a concrete way to approach these kinds of essays and reviews. But if you stuck around until this late in the video, thank you so much for watching. Socials below, you guys know the drill. Feel free to hit me up on any of those, and also thank you guys for helping me get past 20 subs, woohoo! For just recently starting uploading on a regular basis a couple months ago, I'm so glad that there's been this much progress. So, Rocky Vidal, you were the number 20. Thank you so much, sir. And to anybody watching this, please check out his channel. He seems like a very cool guy. He's been very supportive lately, and that goes for everyone. If I get notified of who subbed and you're one of the number zeros, I'd like to check and make sure if it's alright if I do a little shout out, because I cannot state enough how appreciative I am of any support. Every sub keeps me motivated to keep going, and right now I've got 23 reasons to keep moving forward, and that's pretty nice, man. A couple months ago, I didn't even think I'd be reaching past 10 subs anytime soon. Small beginning, folks. Gotta start somewhere. Hope everyone's having a good week. You guys take care. Okay, really quick. This is the Marvel after credit scene. Aliens. Did anybody else see that congressional hearing? Because that shit has been stressing me out. No, not really. It's just really fascinating. I mean, okay, I'm not one to talk about real-world events or anything political on here, but it's just cool. I wanted to say that. And has anybody else had this thought about how, like, okay, if aliens are real, and they're visiting and they're doing it routinely, and have the tech to space travel, like, what the fuck else is real? Are like, alternate dimensions and time rifts and parallel realities? Like, what else is there? Fucking magic? Like, could wizards be a thing? This is stupid, but I mean, aliens have kind of been one of those world-changing tiers of information that defies logic for a lot of people. The belief in aliens, I think it's similar to believing in Bigfoot and all that. At least that was my understanding of it. It's really freaky. It's awesome, but scary as hell, man. If this is real, like legit, then what the hell do those visitors know? They could have a better subjective, like a more comprehensive understanding of how our universe works. It could really rile up some shit, philosophically, religion. I mean, it could really shake things up for everybody here on Earth if we ever get access to what they know. And if we ever do, God, I hope I'm not here for that, because that'll just incite so much fucking chaos. Can you imagine? I'm just happy knowing that they're real. That's enough. No more, please. Alright, anyways, bye. They want to keep it a secret, but here I am, the top G. Use the link below to access 6,400 in Matrix Citizen subsidy. You heard it exactly right. You'll have $6,400 in your hand. You lazy ass. You use this cash for your groceries, or wisely save it for the future. It's a golden opportunity that only comes once. I can't fathom why anyone in their right mind would leave this opportunity to bag a whopping 6,400.
It's literally a 30-second phone call you have to make. Thank you later. Top GM.
Get real.